Welcome back to the Humble Market Timer YouTube channel. Once again, if you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. In today's video, I want to discuss how the recent attacks and capture of the Venezuelan president, how that will affect precious metals in the first and early parts of the stock market, returning back from the holidays on Monday. Before I go any further, please check the description for my disclaimer. Once again, these are my sole ideas, not investment advice. So the big world news is that Trump has put some attacks on Venezuela and has captured their president. And a lot of people are very uncertain as to what this can mean for the stock market, and in particular what it could mean for precious metals. In typical Trump fashion, he tends to sort of take these geopolitical stances and big moves on the weekend. He never does them during the week because he doesn't want to affect the stock market. He's done this before. He likes to wait until around late Friday night, early Saturday mornings to do his business, have a couple of days for the world to kind of digest. So on Monday, if there is some uncertainty, it won't affect the markets as great. And so again, this is typical Trump fashion. And again, with all this, the next question is, what does it mean for the markets, and in particular precious metals? So what I did was we have all of these AI software now. You might as well utilize it to see if it can help you get an edge in the stock market. And I just went ahead and typed in, how would you anticipate attacks on Venezuela will affect the stock market on Monday, and which sectors should do well and which will likely do bad. And if you spit it out, it basically says that the overall market should have some effect, maybe not huge, but maybe some effect. But the areas that it most likely could affect could be oil prices, because China in particular buys a lot of oil from Venezuela. But I also asking it what sectors could do well and which could do poorly. Notice the sectors that said it would do well would be the defense and aerospace contractors. I've done a video in the past, I call them war stocks. A lot of those, Lockheed Martin, RTX, Northrop Grumman, a lot of those companies tend to do well when we have this kind of geopolitical issues. But also, not only should you see sectors that would do well in aerospace and defense, also it mentioned energy, and then it also mentioned gold and silver, or precious metals, because typically those precious metals act as safe havens when there is a bit of geopolitical uncertainty. So those tend to be the sectors that we would anticipate should do well on Monday and maybe Tuesday due to the action taking place over the weekend. So let's see how that corresponds to some of these precious metal charts to see if maybe it signals something moving forward. If you look at the gold chart, and if you know how precious metals have moved recently over the last week or so, after making highs in many of the precious metals, we've had a pretty substantial pullback. As you notice here in the gold chart, I drew this parallel. I think it's been sort of sitting in for about a year now. You can see how we are in this parallel, and you have the upper band and the lower band, and you see we have hit the midpoint of the band and fell back down, and we hit the midpoint once again and we fell back down. So with this news, you may anticipate once again a bounce higher to reattack that midpoint in gold. Let's try and look at some of the other precious metals. Let's look at silver. You see silver here also drew a nice parallel that I believe that silver has been trading in. It seems to have fit in this parallel quite well. You see, we made a new high about a week ago. We pulled back down all the way to the midpoint. We have been trading around at that midpoint around the last couple of days. So again, when you get this sort of action, this sort of geopolitical news, that may be what spearheads reversal in the recent downtrend that we've had in many of those precious metals. We're at areas of support, and so if all of a sudden you start seeing an influx of buying in these precious metals in this sector, you can surely expect a bounce. Also take one more look at platinum. Again, also drew a nice parallel here that you see this trading in, nice midpoints that have acted as areas of support here, but also acted as resistance here. We made a move all the way up to the top of the parallel. Big pullback, significant pullback. We went as high as almost 2,500, about 24.5 in that area, and we pulled all the way back to 1,900. Pretty substantial pullback, but we have since bounced back to that midpoint line, much like in silver and gold. So right now in the precious metals, we're trading along the midpoint lines of the parallels that these precious metals have been trading in. Generally, when you trade along those parallels, you're looking for triggers to possibly move it back up or move it back down. And this particular news that has happened with Venezuela could be a trigger. And I think you might want to anticipate it being a trigger to potentially move these precious metals back up. So keep an eye on precious metals, keep an eye on gold, keep an eye on silver, platinum. When you have these types of geopolitical events, Trump tends to roll the dice when the markets are quiet or when we've just entered a quiet period in the markets so that the world has a chance to sort of digest everything. We'll see on Monday and Tuesday what type of purchases and sectors the financial markets will float to. According to AI, they suggest defense contractors, energy, and precious metals. We will see. Let's see if precious metals can make a bounce. Hope you like the content. If you like it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.